Well, church, it's good to be here to worship with you this morning, and it's really good to be here. Whether you're on the internet or whether you're actually here in person, it's good to see this large of a crowd here. And for the past 3 months, I've been stationed, I don't know if that's the right word, I've been stationed with Warren over at Plateau Missionary Baptist Church, and we've been serving that congregation. And I just want to let you know as a church body that we appreciate your prayers as we've been serving over there. And I just ask that you would continue to pray as we go back after all of this calms down, whenever that is. Just as we navigate that and as we look for God's direction as we move forward over there at Plateau Missionary Baptist Church, we covet your prayers as we attempt to lead there and do God's will. And so it's good to be back here in this place because this is a special place. And this morning, what I want to do is I want to address our current situation a little bit. I think as a pastor, it's our role to do that, to connect with the people and to let you know that the Bible is still relevant. Regardless of what we're dealing with, regardless of how it's turned your world upside down, maybe Scripture is still relevant. And so I want to speak to that this morning. And, I think it's fair to ask the question of everyone here and everyone that's watching, in the past few weeks or in the past few months, do you feel like your world's been turned upside down? Because these are certainly interesting times. And we could say that for a handful of reasons. I know that we've dealt here on the plateau with some serious thunderstorms, some potential high winds and tornadoes, and then not too long ago, I guess last weekend, the same thing down in the Chattanooga area. And then, of course, over the past, I don't know now, it seems it's hard to keep up with days as things have been turned so upside down. But with this virus and pandemic, we're dealing with all these things. And so the world's been shut down, society has changed, your day-to-day has changed, and so it seems like trouble is all around us. I know just in my own personal experience, as a school teacher, I'm not waking up and going to school every day. My routine's been shot. I'm working a different side job now. I had a tree fall in my house. This is the first time I've had a chance to address you guys too. Thank you for all the people that came over and helped us clean up that storm damage at my own house. So just in my own life, things have kind of been turned upside down in the last 4 weeks. And kind of what I mean by that is if you had stopped me a month ago and said, hey man, a month from now, this is what your life's going to look like, I probably would have laughed at you. Like, come on, are you serious? And maybe you're in that situation too, or maybe, everybody's situation is a little bit different. And maybe it's connected to the things that we've dealt with in current situations, or maybe it's not. Maybe it's totally separate and it's unique to you. But the fact is that regardless of what your situation is, it's real. It's real to you. And trouble is real. That's the truth. Trouble is real. And we all experience it in some form or fashion. It's not like we're going to dodge it for all of our life. Maybe you're sitting in a situation right now where things haven't changed a whole lot. But trouble is going to come. Even if you're not dealing with it today, trouble's going to come. We kind of see that in Scripture. In Job 5:7, Job has some friends that come. Job deals with calamity. His family dies. He loses everything he has. And Job has these friends that come and offer advice. And we look through that whole book, and we don't get a whole lot of positive or useful information from Job's friends. They're not what you would classify as really good friends. But one thing that is true in Job 5:7, a friend named Eliphaz tells Job, but man is born to trouble as the sparks fly upward. And that's not necessarily the language that we use today, but if you imagine a campfire, sitting around a campfire, you see sparks from a campfire and they go up. So what his friend is saying is, listen, Job, trouble exists and it's going to happen. You can't look at a campfire and not see sparks go up. It's going to happen. And trouble's the same way. It's real. And not only is trouble real, but its effects can be real, right? It impacts us physically. It impacts us emotionally. And if we allow it to, it can wreck us in more ways than one. So I think it's fair to ask the following questions. Well, if trouble is real, then what do we do about it? And how do we overcome difficulty? When I'm thrown into the middle of difficulty, how do I overcome it? How do I exist in the middle of it? Because it's very rarely is it a quick fix. So if I'm in the middle of a troubling situation or troublesome situation, how do I exist in that? And then how do I move forward and not be paralyzed. Because it's a real temptation to dwell on your trouble and to compound it, and now I'm stuck in the middle of it and I'm paralyzed and don't know what to do. So how do I move forward in the midst of trouble? And this morning I want to look at that in Scripture. And here's the good news. The good news is that God cares about you. And you need to hear that this morning, because even though it may not feel that way at times, God cares about you. He's concerned about you. And there's nothing that exists in your life that he does not know about. He's bigger than your trouble. But the truth still remains that you want answers, right? In my human state, I want answers. So I think in Psalm 46, that's where we're going to be this morning. In Psalm chapter 46, we're presented with the answer to those questions, right? Those questions of, well, what do I do about trouble? How do I overcome trouble? How do I exist in the middle of it? And how do I move forward and not be paralyzed? And I think what we find in Psalm 46 is just this simple truth, that a knowledge of God will bring you peace in troubled times. A true knowledge of God will bring peace in troubled times. So let's read Psalm 46, and then we'll walk through it. It says, God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore we will not fear, though the earth gives way, though the mountains be moved into the heart of the sea, though its waters roar and foam, though the mountains tremble at its swelling. There is a river whose streams make glad the city of God, the holy habitation of the Most High. God is in the midst of her. She shall not be moved. God will help her when morning dawns. The nations rage, the kingdoms totter. He utters his voice, the earth melts. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our fortress. Come, behold the works of the Lord, how he has brought desolations on the earth. He makes war cease to the end of the earth. He breaks the bow and shatters the spear. He burns the chariots with fire. Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our fortress. Now, anytime we look at a passage of Scripture, it's important that we kind of understand the context, that we ask a couple of questions. Why did the author write this? What's going on and what is the purpose? And the truth of Psalm 46 is that we don't really have clear evidence as to what's going on behind the scenes as the author writes this psalm. There's different scholars that think different things, and we could speculate all day long, and I don't think it really benefits us very much. It's not very profitable because we don't have concrete evidence. But what we can know, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand that the psalmist wrote this psalm in the midst of trouble, in the midst of some serious trouble. And what he can do is provide us direction on how I can apply it to my life. How can I find peace in the midst of my own trouble? And it doesn't take very long, right out the gate in verse 1, we're presented with the theme of the psalm. The very first phrase, God is our refuge and strength. He alone is the place that we're called to, as he is a help in our trouble. Note, and I want you to notice here, there's no disclaimer, right? There's no disclaimer. There's no asterisk there. Your situation is not special. It's not any different, right? But how often do we think that? Man, why am I the one that this happened to? Like it's the first time ever in the history of the world that this situation has happened. Your situation's not special. It's not different. And even greater than that, there's no situation that's beyond God's help. So how do we know that to be true? Well, that's where the psalmist is going to take us in this whole psalm. He's going to walk us down a path showing us how this is true, why we should trust this to be true, and how it will bring us peace regardless of our difficulty. We get to verse 2. It says, therefore we will not fear, though the earth gives way. Immediately, the author makes the connection back to verse 1. He declares, therefore we will not fear. When you see therefore, you have to look before to see what it's referencing. And it was God is our refuge and strength. Because he is our refuge and strength, therefore we're not going to fear. And again, note that there's no disclaimer. There's no declaration that says we won't fear in this situation. Right? This doesn't come, this declaration of we will not fear doesn't come before any potential situation is described. Right? So it's not like, well, in this situation, we're not going to fear. But in this situation, it's time to be really fearful. It's not what it says. It's a blanket statement that God is our refuge and strength, and therefore we will not fear. We can always be confident in God, and we can always find peace in God. I want you to see three things as we move through this chapter that the author is going to declare to us. It's a very simple formula, but he's going to present to us the fact that, one, there is trouble. It's real. We're not going to hide it. We're not going to pretend that it doesn't exist. Trouble is real, and it exists. But number two, there's a God, and he is real, and he exists. And then thirdly, because there is a God, there can be peace. You can have peace in the midst of your trouble. So the first thing that he shows us starting in verse 2 is that trouble is real. He makes it very clear that trouble is real. Listen to him as he says, the earth gives way, though the mountains be moved into the heart of the sea. What's he describing? He's painting a picture of real catastrophe. Now, I mentioned before, recently we've had